We have with us Laurie Ferguson, Federal Member for Wariwa. Laurie previously was Federal Member for Reed and worked very closely with the Hazara people and other Afghanistani communities here in Sydney and around Australia. Laurie, we thank you and welcome to Payam TV.
It's good that you've got this operation running. It's a great accomplishment for the community.
Laurie, please share with us your experience and involvement with the people of Hazaras and also other Afghanistani ethnic groups in Sydney and around Australia.
I guess it arises from two things. The fact that Hazara settlement's been very significant around Granville, Guildford, Harris Park area, where I represent it, and also because of my interest and involvement with immigration. It's went on to go to many events, New Year's events, school presentations, graduations, visiting political leaders from Afghanistan and the Hazara community, involvement in individual refugee cases, taking up issues such as the language, with availability of the language with interpreters, all of those areas. So I've had a very rewarding and very continuing connection with the Hazara community.
Laurie, as you know, the Hazara and other Afghanistani people has been persecuted by the murderous government since the last 300 years. Due to these reasons, the Hazaras has been migrated to Australia and other nations in the world. And recently this trend continues with persecution of the Hazara people by the terrorist group Taliban and also the coaches recently. Laurie, what do you think of the current policies in regards to the asylum seekers and what could be done by the Australian government and also by the people of Afghanistan to be able to help and assist the asylum seekers in Australia?
Well, there's a number of issues there. Yes, I'm still aware of nomadic Kuchi encroaching on Hazara lands and the reality of systemic discrimination for a long period of time. It can't be totally rectified by a few ministers in the government. Marginalisation for hundreds of years means that you start from a very backward, difficult position in the country, so those things have to be borne in mind when we consider refugee claims. The other part of refugees and asylum in this country is our settlement processes. I would hope that the Hazara community is very heavily involved in consultation processes such as the one I conducted last year about how people are settled in this country, availability of English, making sure the community is assisted in building its own structures and has organisations that can engage with government. I think we've got to be also honest with the community that this country's intake of 13,750 is designed for the whole world. Everyone feels their cases are the most pressing and there's a lot of Congolese who will come to me and say that they have not got many positions over the last few years and other communities have got many. It's a difficult balance and we have to be objective, not emotional, about who has the most pressing, the most difficult situation in a very hard world. The other thing the Hazara community I think is doing from the point of view of all refugees is being a model community. One of the things that struck me, and I've seen it very much appreciated by the wider community, is the Hazara search for education in this country, particularly young girls, because they didn't have this opportunity in Afghanistan. The search, the actual enthusiasm for women to go to university, and males, but particularly the female Hazara community, it's very inspiring. Whenever you see them in schools, they have this zest, this determination, which becomes a very positive aspect for refugees in general. Obviously, involvement in community matters. I've just been interested in the last few weeks. I've been working a lot with Bangladeshis in regards to Queensland floods. That's another thing the Hazara community has got to be perceived as becoming part of society, and keeping its own culture, its religion, its history, its relationships, but also engaging with the wider Australia so that people gain an appreciation of what they're contributing to this country. So there's some of the points of. We've got to be very mindful that a lot of Australians are very insular. They don't have engagement with other communities, they don't have knowledge, they don't have experience. Anything that the community can do to make sure it gets out there and gets involved with other people helps the government's position in having a refugee intake, because it's often very unpopular with people who don't know very much about the world, don't know very much about people's sufferings, get their news in 2-second grabs on TV. All this kind of involvement with the wider community is really far more important than what people think.
Laurie, what is your view on the memorandum which was recently signed by Chris Bowen, the Immigration Minister, and the Immigration Minister of Afghanistan, Jamahir Anwari, recently, in regards to the asylum seekers?
Well, as I understand it, that's now been abandoned, and that's probably a good outcome for everyone involved in the controversy. I guess that one of the issues that is in this general area is the reality that Australia's Afghan intake, as I understand it, would be approximately 90% Hazara. And one of the things we've got to guard against is that our governments, our politicians, even our department can get affected by very vocal smaller communities in this country and not have enough contact with the Hazaras' established organisations about their perception of the reality in Afghanistan. So I think this is one of the points, one of the lessons we learn, that we should always be careful that we understand Hazaras have established institutions, established leadership, variety of organisations, and they should be consulted in any of these kind of processes. We all know that it's very difficult to get an overall appraisal of localised kind of situation in Afghanistan. We have counterclaims the whole time about Taliban influence, Allied influence, etc., the warlords, who's on whose side, who's switching this week, who does this for that reason. So we've got to be very careful in a minefield of Afghan politics. Look, I think we have to be, I guess the other thing we've got to be mindful of is that if there has been no improvement whatsoever for Hazaras, then some people in Australia might say, why do we have forces there any longer? Haven't they accomplished anything? Why do we bother? So I guess that's another part of the perception in the Australian electorate. I'm just pleased in retrospect that this thing has been abandoned, because there was a lot of intenseness from the Hazara community that they would see people forced to return to a situation they think is still unsafe. Obviously we depend on Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, US State Department, our Foreign Affairs Committee. All these things should formulate what Australian policy is, not what the Afghan government necessarily says, not what particular ethnic groups in Australia that might not want too many Hazaras coming here, what they think. So as I say, in summary, I think we'd be well pleased that this agreement is not being proceeded with, and that Hazaras will have legitimate rights in a process, in an appeal process system.
Laurie, I would like to thank you for joining us at TV Payam. I would also like to thank you for assisting us establishing Radio Payam as well as establishing TV Payam. Laurie, before we go, would you like to have any last messages to the community?
Look, I just can only be positive. I say things as I see them. I don't sugarcoat things. If there's negativisms, I actually always articulate them to people. But I think the Hazaras can be well pleased of the pattern of settlement in this country. They're a community that most people who have contact with are well motivated towards. As I say, this surge in education, the enthusiasm that people play, a willingness to bring people from outside the community. A bit like the Burmese. If you go to any Burmese event, you see a lot of Anglo-Saxons who feel great affinity towards the Burmese cause. Well, I think that's the same thing with the Hazaras. They've been very welcoming to outsiders to be involved in their issues and to get to know them better. You see this enthusiasm from teachers in our education system towards the community. As I say, I'm just hopeful that their settlement in this country can be successful. There's an issue, of course, of parents who lack education, who've got poor English, etc. Some of them, they find it very difficult to reorientate in the society. Their kids are engaging with the society a lot more, and there's often intergenerational conflicts and issues. That's why the event at Auburn last Friday before last was very good. That Saturday before last, sorry. That was really great that so many people come together to discuss issues such as arranged marriages, educational aspirations of young people, their desire to have a different social life sometime to what their parents expect. The fact that generations were discussing this amongst themselves was a really good sign. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time, Laurie.
Thank you.